Hello and welcome to Yukon State of Mind. I'm Nataschaa Chatterton, a trauma and conflict therapist here in the Yukon. This is a new show on Community TV in which we aim to shine a light on mental health in the Yukon. We're striving to support individuals living with mental health to find normalization and validation, while also building education and resources for all Yukoners. We have a great show for you here today. We have three special guests. Our first guest is Nicole Bringsley, a registered psychologist here in the Yukon. Welcome, Nicole.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your background in mental health.
I'm a registered psychologist, and I've been working as a psychologist for about 13 years with children and adolescents and adults in various capacities. And right now I'm in private practice.
Great. Help us understand a little bit more about what mental health is.
So I think the important thing to recognize is that mental health is a continuum of mild, moderate, and severe symptoms. So a lot of the times people think of mental health as the more serious disorders. We actually have a diagnostic manual that explains what the different diagnoses is, but when people talk about mental health, it can be a person's overall wellness and how they're functioning, or it could be how they're not functioning and how they might not be well.
So there's a broad range, a broad spectrum of what mental health is.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and many people in society live certain symptoms of mental illness or mental health struggles in their life, and they might not meet a full-blown diagnosis, but other people might meet a criteria for a diagnosis, and that's often where some negative ideas or thoughts come in towards mental health or mental illness.
So these negative thoughts that are often formed around individuals with mental health challenges. We're hearing a lot these days about that and about the stigma against those who are suffering from mental health challenges. Could you share a little bit about stigma and how that impacts individuals?
Well, the way the stigma of mental health impacts individuals is that it creates a lot of shame, and it's seen as a weakness or a vulnerability. So oftentimes people are then defined by their mental health issues, and it overshadows all the sort of gifts and strengths that they have, and oftentimes the focus becomes what they can't do or what they struggle with, as opposed to what they are able to do. So and the stigma becomes marginalizing for people and sort of pushes them more to the outside and makes them feel less included.
So the stigma then turns the mental health challenge into the dominating force in their life, rather than focusing on the parts of the individual that are thriving and doing well.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, because it becomes dominant as well, because the person, oftentimes it makes people sort of go dormant or silent. And it's hard for people to start asking if they're struggling with a mental health problem or issue for help or resources, because then it identifies them with the mental health issue. So oftentimes people don't ask, so then they suffer in silence, or they don't get the help that they need. And if they're not getting the help that they need, then oftentimes the mental health concern becomes greater and the symptoms can become worse. Whereas if they had been able to receive treatment and resources, the mental health issue might have come into balance more quickly.
So in a way, the current perspective on mental health challenges is promoting individuals to struggle even more, rather than opening up the space for people to come out and get the support that they need.
I would say so, because I think when people come forward, and this is generalizing, but when people come forward, they think that something's really wrong at that point. Mm-hmm. Whereas some of the bells or some of the signals that might have gone on for them to say, gee, like something's not right, or I'm not feeling good, or I'm not able to do something that I did before, if they could come forward and ask for the help at that point, or at least get more information, or at least know where to start looking, then it might not get to the point of somebody losing their job, having to drop out of school, losing a relationship. So oftentimes there's a loss of something, or the potential loss of something, before people come forward. And we want to make sure that people are getting what they need far before that happens.
And it sounds like at the beginning of this conversation, there was some talk about the continuum, and so that there's a wide range of symptoms and impacts on individuals, and the more that we can talk about it and feel safe and comfortable bringing forward some of the challenges we're experiencing, then the more we're all going to realize that exactly where we're at is okay, and that there are resources to help us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And because of that continuum, if sometimes someone can start off with mild symptoms and then it can become worse, or depending on what the sources of the mental health issue, because mental health issues can come from genetic pieces, life circumstances, upbringing can make people can increase somebody's vulnerability to develop a mental health illness. So all those factors are really important. But one of the things that I've experienced is that you just never know when you're going to have a mental health issue, and it can happen to anyone. And that's the importance of people feeling like they can have the space and the resources to be able to access the help when they need it. So it's something that affects everybody, even if not everybody talks about it.
I think that's a really important piece here that hopefully everyone's going to be able to explore just a little bit more, that realization that it could affect anyone. And in fact, probably many people are right now living with mental health challenges that don't feel the place to come out and share it. And if we do find the ability to come out and express and know that there's these resources out there, the potential for all of us living in a more healthy state is far greater.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and workplaces is a really big big place that we could be doing some different movements. For families who have people that are having mental health struggles, or if they're having their own personal mental health struggles, there's a lot of things in place where people get supported if they have physical disabilities, physical challenges, physical ailments, but mental health is something that's more hidden and not seen, and it seems to get less support from the workplace or with families, or even sometimes the school systems.
So it really sounds like altogether we're talking about, in all areas, in life, in school, in work, opening up the conversations, opening up the space to support one another and to allow the conversations to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you very much for coming here today. It's been really informative and hopefully supports all of us Yukoners here to understand a little bit more clearly mental health and how it impacts all of us, and that there are ways that we can all work together to reduce the stigma and allow the conversation to be part of everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for having me.
Our next guest here on Yukon State of Mind is Kim Solonick. She's a parent of an individual living with mental health challenges, as well as the founder of the Family Support Group. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
Kim, tell us a little bit about your experience with mental health.
Well, my experience with mental health goes back to a personal experience with my own family. I have a son who was diagnosed with a mental illness back in 2000, and so I've been working to support him through a number of means, including the foundation of a family support group.
Great. And so we heard a little bit about what stigma is and a little bit about how it impacts individuals. And yet you've had first-hand experience of living with a child, working within the systems, engaging with stigma. Help us to understand exactly how that's impacted your life.
Well, it's impacted my son's life most, but mine as well. My son was in high school when he started to get sick, and so of course, children don't understand mental illness, and so a lot of people stayed away from him, and he lost his friends. When he's gone to look for work, there has been moments where he's been denied employment because he's very upfront about the fact that he needs to maintain his health, has doctor's appointments, etc. And so he's been denied access to employment. And of course, the idea that people with mental health issues are possibly dangerous or uneducated, lazy, all of those things that are the labels attached to someone with mental health, that affects him, and of course that affects the family as well. You know, I'm trying to support my son to have the best possible life that he can, and when you see those sorts of indignities happening to your family, it's very frustrating. So I have strived to educate people about mental illness and how it affects all of us. The statistics are one in 5 people will experience mental illness, but I believe it's all of us, because if it's not my son, it's me, it's you, it's your friends, your family, your employers, your community, and it does affect us all.
And so just that one person having this ripple effect in which the whole community becomes affected by that, the stigma, by limiting individuals within the community and making assumptions about what people are capable of, instead of working to support and work together to allow the community to thrive.
That's right, yes.
And so you mentioned advocacy and how that's become a big part of your life. I can only imagine as a mother and witnessing your child going through all these negative responses to their life, how difficult that must have been for you, and how difficult it must be for you, and how that really promotes your desire to change things.
Yes, well, when my son was sick, I needed support as well. I needed to understand what was happening to him, what I could do to support him, and I didn't have access to resources like that. There's lots of stuff online, but I needed to talk to somebody. I needed to voice my fear, my anxiety, my questions about what was going to happen next. And so the opportunity came along with mental health services to start the caregiver support group. And through that, I have discovered that there are many, many people who are experiencing the same thing as I am. And the opportunity to sit and talk with someone who is also living that life is so comforting, and it's so normalizing. And we're able to share details about what we're experiencing with people who don't judge and don't jump to assumptions, and that understand where we're at, and to support each other. A lot of what it is just making sure that whoever might be in crisis at the time, because that is typical, the family is going to crisis, that we're there to support that person and to make sure that they know that there are resources around them. There's not a lot of resources for family members, but just the opportunity to be in a safe place, to be able to share your fears, your anxiety, your frustrations, and to also find support and possible resources within the community. So it's been a big part. It was, you know, the helping you helps me philosophy has been a very rewarding one as well. I mean, my son is a very, very healthy young man, but I continue to be involved because I want to make sure that people know that there's a future for their family, that there's hope and that there's health, and that we can all work together to support that person. It takes a community to raise a child, and I strongly feel that sometimes the best resources aren't necessarily the parent. It might be a friend, a family member, a community member who that person has a relationship with. So it sort of takes the pressure off the immediate family as well, to realize that they can step back and allow the community to support that person.
Sounds like you've created a real network of support that doesn't necessarily come easily in the grander community, based on these stories of stigma that occur towards individuals suffering with mental health challenges, and that you've been able to draw people together to offer the support that is required. It also sounds like something that many people could use, that network of support, and that perhaps this is a model for coming together as a community and realizing that we all have challenges in which we will gain from by coming together as a community.
Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of this group, is that it's not political, it's not attached to any specific organization. We're just a group of family members who have the passion to keep our family well, and so we can network very easily with other organizations. So we've had guests like the Second Opinion Society, the Mental Health Association, the RCMP, Mental Health Services. All of those organizations have engaged in our group at some point, because we seek out the information that we feel that we need at the time, and we bring in the experts, and it's incredibly helpful to just understand what our family is going through. There's a lot of aids within the group as well, as far as understanding symptoms and some of the experiences that someone might have. We're looking to build on the group and build the size of the group. Right now it's about 10 people, and that's a good healthy size, but we know there's so much more demand for it, so we're looking to increase that.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim, for joining us. I really have a much greater understanding now of the real impact that society places on families, and the support that is available if we all work together to support one another. And the resource of the Family Support Group would be a fantastic resource for many of our listeners. How would our listeners find out more?
Well, thanks for asking. You can contact Mental Health Services, and their phone number is in the book, or on the Department of Health's website. There's also a blurb there about the Family Support Group and the purpose of it. You can look us up on Facebook. We're linked in with the Mental Health Association of Yukon's Facebook page, which is MHAY. And also you can call me, Kim Solonick. My number's in the book.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming today, Kim. You've really helped us to understand mental health with a much greater scope.
Thank you.
Our next guest on Yukon State of Mind is Jeremy Linville, an individual who's been living with the impacts of mental health challenges. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hi.
Thank you for coming today and being willing to sit here and share your story.
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit about your story with mental health.
My name is Jeremy Linville. I've been born and raised in the Yukon. 20 years old now. And it actually all kind of started one day when I was 15. Just decided I'd skip out of class. I wanted to go get high, just smoking marijuana. And you know, I happened to accomplish my mission, except this time the joint was laced with PCP, and it kind of sent me on a spiral downwards. It took about 5 or 6 months for anybody even to start noticing anything, but one of my friends actually did happen to mention it to me, that I seemed to be acting off and everything. And he even told me I may be falling into a schizophrenic episode, which was pretty close to what I had. And I found out when I went into the hospital one day that they diagnosed me with drug-induced psychosis. Had thoughts of grandiose, so I was just hallucinating with voices and thinking weird things, basically. And that kind of landed myself in the BC Women's and Children's Hospital. So it's
quite the story, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what were some of the things that were noticeable, the outward expressions of what was happening for you on the inside?
Well, what was happening on the inside was a lot different from the outside, actually. I heard a lot of voices, so it's could have been anybody's voices, really. Like if I seen you, then half an hour later I'd be hearing your voice in my head. I got really lucky with the fact that they weren't telling me to harm myself or harm anybody. But I had a lot of thoughts about random government SWAT teams breaking in and taking me away kind of thing. Just a lot of thoughts are grandiose.
And your friend was there to let you know.
Yeah, I actually feel extremely thankful for that. I almost feel if he didn't, then maybe I wouldn't have gone to the hospital.
So that was a critical piece in you going for help.
Yeah, it was definitely a critical piece, and I honestly do think that more often than not, people should speak up.
So that's not a common thing for people to speak up and talk to their friends and family.
It's not common at all. People always get thoughts, you know, they basically just get scared of talking to anybody else about it. They immediately think they're just going to get looked at in a certain way. They think they're going to be told to do certain things maybe. And one major thing is a lot of people are scared about being, you know, locked up in a psych ward. So it's definitely a big thing that people need to do, I think.
And when you did go to the hospital and were presented with a potential diagnosis, what happened next?
I was held in the Whitehorse Hospital for 2 weeks before they sent me out to the BC hospital. And what happened there was the doctor actually told me I might be there forever. And that put a pretty big stop in my life, actually. And I worked as hard as I could to make myself better, and by all chances I actually did. So it's a pretty big relief for me to know that I can make it through things people tell me I can't.
That's tremendous. What were some of the things that you did to make yourself better?
I did quite a few things, pretty simple too even. It's just eating healthy, make sure you have a routine, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Exercise, it could be running, push-ups, sit-ups, anything. And one coping mechanism that I always used too was just writing down music, lyrics, or to express my thoughts and emotions that way. And it keeps me a little bit more level.
Turning to the arts.
Yeah.
And what was your family and friends, how did they support you through this process?
My family was a tremendous help. They were always there for anything that I needed. My mom actually stopped her life and came down to Vancouver with me and stayed there, just so I had somebody I knew that was close to me. And that did help a lot, but what happened with my friends too is it's kind of the whole stigma thing. A lot of them didn't know how to talk to me, didn't know how to treat me, so they pretty much just left my life.
What was that like for you?
Bad. Just bad. It kind of ripped me apart. They were childhood friends, so it wasn't very good.
So you found yourself quite alone.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I think there's only one or two of my friends that would even continue talking to me after that. But I think I made a lot of new good friends too through that.
So you mentioned finding that healthy balance and turning to the arts and turning to music. How has that impacted your success?
It actually impacted it a lot because I was able to describe on paper what I was going through rather than speaking it to someone's face. And it definitely did help a lot. Yeah.
Great. And your life now with friends, you mentioned that you've made new friends.
Yeah.
What's your life like now?
It's a lot better, actually. I find myself feeling better and more successful each and every day. I always have friends that are talking to me now, at least. And actually each and every one of them told me too that they'd always be there for me too if I ever needed them. And I do feel like I could rely on them. So that's a tremendous thing for me.
What's the difference between the friends you have now and the ones that you had when you were 15?
They're not afraid. And that's a big thing. They're not afraid to talk about anything with me, to do with me or to do with them either. They wouldn't be afraid to speak up about things like this either, and I know a lot of them will probably be all for it.
They're there as your support system.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if there's any organizations or any people that you worked with to support you to get through this challenge.
Yeah, I worked with the EPI program down at Mental Health. It's an awesome program, and like more than the program, it's the people. It's the people there that are so caring and show you that they're there for you and not for a paycheck. I've been around workers like that are there for money rather than to help, and it's not very fun or great being around them at all.
So that support system has really helped you to come to where you're at today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for having the courage to be here and share and talk and offer some light to others that may be either supporting individuals with mental health challenges and or experiencing them themselves. And to conclude Yukon State of Mind, we get the pleasure of hearing Jeremy and his art and his music and how he expresses with the end of the show here. So thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the music that will lead you out. And until next time, we'll see you later on Yukon State of Mind.
Listen, I need you at the end of the day, cause my headspace ain't okay. Piecing away like decay, swallowed up like prey, fried up like filet. By the way, you're still gonna be my fiance. You've been through all the original sin. You've knocked me in the chin, but no one ever wins. I think it's time we settle, cause this is boiling like a kettle. I still remember seeing you walk up my drive for the very first time. I dropped on a dime, thought damn, she has to be mine. Never let go, got you through my flow. I aimed, I tamed the woman who shall not be named. I won, and now we're just raising our very